Well, that didn't take long. After her dominant showing at Short Course Worlds in December, Gretchen Walsh is back at it again, making headlines with fast swimming. Last week, we saw Walsh in action at the Virginia vs Virginia Tech dual meet. Here, she swam 3 races, the 50 and 100 freestyle, as well as the 200 medley relay. This is actually the first time that she's contested the 100 freestyle this NCAA season, an event where she is the defending NCAA champion. With a time of 46:12, she won the event by over 2.5 seconds. That time is also the fastest in the NCAA this year by almost half a second, as well as the 13th fastest swim in history. Her 50 freestyle is somehow even more impressive. Her time of 20.73 would have been the fastest in the NCAA this year if it wasn't for her midseason time of 20.54 already topping the rankings. However, that swim is one of the fastest in the history of this event, with only herself ever being faster, as Gretchen Walsh inches closer and closer to completely taking over the top 10. But the most insane swim of the meet has to be the very first one, on the 200 medley relay, where Gretchen Walsh threw down a ridiculous split on the butterfly leg. A blazing 20.87, the fastest split in history, and the first time a woman has ever broken 21 seconds. Walsh absolutely demolished the previous fastest ever split of 21.50 from around the same time of the year last season. The next fastest swim not from Gretchen Walsh is from Maggie McNeil at a 21.85, almost a full second slower than Walsh. It's impressive enough on its own that Gretchen Walsh now owns the first, second, third, and fifth fastest splits of all time, but even more so when you consider the fact that everyone else on the top 10 swam their fastest at a championship meet, whereas all of Walsh's times were at dual meets. Normally, UVA uses Gretchen Walsh on backstroke on the relays at the end of the year, so traditionally these dual meets are the only times we ever see her on butterfly duty. Walsh wasn't the only notable thing about this relay though, because with a time of 131.53, they were only 2 100ths away from their own NCAA record of 131.51 in this event. Comparing the splits, Gretchen Walsh was obviously the biggest difference maker between the two races, actually managing to outsplit the freestyle leg. Alex Walsh even managed to better her own split from the record-setting relay, which is the only leg that remained the same between the two races. The splits that kept the NCAA record out of reach for the day was again Gretchen Walsh on the backstroke leg with a 22.27 and Kate Douglas on the freestyle with a 20.34. Another notable thing about this meet as a whole was Katie Grimes making her college debut swimming for UVA. Grimes was a big pickup for Virginia, serving to bolster an already stacked roster, and things already appear to be working out for her pretty well at UVA as she went 3 for 3 in individual event victories. Her wins in the 200 IM and the 200 butterfly were very narrow victories over Amy Canny and Alex Walsh, with the 200 IM coming down to just 1/100th of a second. Currently, Grimes ranks 15th in the NCAA in the 200 IM, 13th in the 200 back, and 6th in the 200 butterfly, which is interesting because these times were again achieved at dual meets when most of the top entries were done at mid-season meets, as well as the fact that Grimes' best events are the 400 IM and distance freestyles. Like I said, Katie Grimes is a ridiculous addition to this University of Virginia roster, and one that seems to ensure that we're in for another dominant showing at the end of the season, because at this point, who could really catch them without several event disqualifications? The next time we'll see this Virginia women's team back in action will be at a quad meet hosted by the University of Texas. Joining Texas and Virginia will be NC State and Arizona State, which is a completely loaded dual meet. On the women's side, you obviously have Virginia, but Texas was last year's NCAA runner-up, and they look pretty well positioned to repeat that placing, and NC State is always solid, coming off a 9th place finish last year. On the men's side, we have a big matchup between last year's NCAA team champions Arizona State and one of the favorites to take the team title this year, Texas, and again, NC State is always in that mix, finishing 5th last year, over 100 points ahead of Texas. That meet takes place on January 24th and 25th. If you're a fan of NCAA swimming, I'd highly recommend paying attention to what comes out of Austin. And of course, if anything major happens, I'll be sure to let you know.